Hey everybody, welcome to the new channel. I am so glad you found me here, and I'm looking forward to showing you all some new and amazing things around the Power Platform. And now to start with these new things, we're going to go back in time. Today I'm going to use the Plan Designer and Power Apps to create this Microsoft Business Solutions CRM, which eventually became Dynamics CRM, which eventually became Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement, and really is the whole foundation for what we know today as the Power Platform. So it's kind of cool that we've come full circle, and now we're going to use Plan Designer today to build a CRM system. All right, let's dive into it. Now, I know a lot of you are tempted to go here into the Power Apps environment. I've created a new environment to create this. Let's make a plan. Do we start here? Actually, we don't. This is not where I'm going to start. What we want to do is create a product requirements document, also known as a PRD. Now, you might call this a requirements document, a solution architecture document, a planning document, a vision document. I've heard a bunch of different ways being called this, but this is basically where we're going to sit down with our end users, our customer, and collect all of these requirements, create those user stories, and that's what we want to collect so we actually know what it is we're going to build. We need to get all this information before we just start typing into a window the thing that we're going to build. So this is a very important process. Now, I've gone through and I've collected a lot of documents around this, a lot of information, and I've put this in something really neat. So let's take a look what I did. All right, I am in Microsoft 365 Copilot. This is the Copilot that you pay extra for as part of your licenses. It has a feature here called Notebooks, and then Notebooks allows you to do amazing things. This is a fairly new feature. There's a lot of other great videos out there on the web about Notebooks, about this new feature. Basically, what I did is I created a new notebook. I called it Project Personal Branding. And then what I did was I began to add a lot of documents, my other proposals I've done, other professional services, catalog, documents, those types of things. I even put in my Sessionized profile, my LinkedIn profile, a bunch of workshop overviews, a whole bunch of information, plus some other documents I've put together as I'm beginning to plan out this sort of business building replanning process. And I also want to build my own CRM system. So I thought, what better way to do this than to use Plan Designer? Now, Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement has a great sales management tool, but it's a little overkill for my needs as a solopreneur. So what I'm going to do is build my own. Now, to do this, I went through and I created, as I said before, a product requirements document and fed in a lot of those other documents. So I'm not going to go through that whole process, but basically I had a prompt and I'm using something here called CRIT, which means I'm going to get the context, the role, the interview, and the task, CRT. And then I've also added a thing for details here. So I filled in this whole prompt about I want to design a CRM sales management system. It's telling Copilot what its role is going to be, a solution selling expert and a CRM system expert. The task itself, what we're trying to build, I want to create a product requirements document to use to build a CRM system. And I filled out a whole bunch of details and requirements that I want to see in the particular CRM system I'm building. And then also I've put in the interview, ask me questions to clarify the requirements, question the need or the value of the requirements, and gain additional context. And of course, Copilot went on that way. It said, based on this, looked at some of the documents and then began to ask me clarifying questions. Ask me questions about the product catalog integration, the website integration, sales pipeline and stages, the task and reminder system, things that I fed into it, company and contact management. So basically ask me a whole series of questions to further refine this. Now, this is something Plan Designer doesn't necessarily do. It will go out and start building. So this is another reason why we're starting here in Microsoft 365 Copilot. And for that matter, you could use other AI tools for the same process. I just want to kind of keep this within the blue Kool-Aid sphere, if you will. All right. Now it had my requirements. Oh, so basically, it could do all this stuff. Now, yes, I went through and I answered this. One thing I do find with Copilot is I need to hold the shift return key, or else by hitting the return key, it's going to start feeding it information. I wanted to give this in one chunk. So yes, I answered the questions, went through, filled all the information the best I could, and then basically went through and then began to create my PRD document. I got the structure, I got the overview, basically gave me a high-level overview and different stories. It asked me some further clarifying questions about the actual project, the product I'm building, and I answered those, and then created that product requirements document and gave me the full overview, the functional requirements, the data model, the entities and relationships, user stories, a whole bunch of different things, some non-functional requirements, future enhancements, and then asked me if I want to generate a Word version. Now, this is something Copilot is acting a little funky on. It didn't actually able to create that Word document. It also asked me about diagrams. So I did ask it to give me the diagram of the sales process that I'd be following, which I took from another freelancer course that I took from Lonely Octopus. For those of you who are interested in that type of thing, you should check them out. I went through the 4 steps I'm going through is like a sourcing, a proposal, an alignment, an implementation, and a support upsell process with some details around that. It created this image. I was able to download that. We're going to use that in a bit. For now, just sort of get the gist of what I'm doing. Again, trying to generate the Word version, and it said it created it. It did refer to another Word document. It wasn't able to download, like I said. Anyways, so we went through and we created, basically, this took probably a few hours, but back and forth, answering questions, clarifying the requirements. Again, if we were in a room with a client, we'd be asking questions, getting those requirements, putting them in as we begin to build out our design system. This is something that using AI as a thought partner is very valuable. All right. Now that we've done that, we've generated our PRD document. What we want to do is maybe now we're going to go over to Plan Designer to actually build it. Now, what I could do is I could just paste everything in, but I actually want to take another step here is I actually want to create the prompt that I'm going to use in Plan Designer. So let's put that in. All right, so I'm going to paste in the prompt. So here, I put in the prompt at the bottom of this particular chat because it remembers all the context. I said, I want to create this described CRM system using vibe coding or AI assisted app creation tools. Yes, I know vibe coding is a buzzword and people are saying, vibe coding is the greatest thing ever to vibe coding is shit. I like to think it's somewhere in between. I like this new term that's being tossed around, AI assistant app creation. I think that's part of the process and Plan Designer does lend itself to that. So anyways, whatever you want to call it, this is what we're going to use. And basically, I am telling Copilot that they're a solution architect, take the PRD document and craft a prompt that I can use a vibe coding tool to create the app. Now, I'm going kind of hot into this. I have not walked through this yet like I normally do. Let's just see what happens. So Copilot is taking all this information and it's generating it. And then basically here, it's created that prompt for vibe coding or an AI app builder. Talk about building a CRM system, talks about the product catalog, the website integration, sales pipeline, the company and contact management, activity tracking and reminders, the dashboard, data model entities, non-functional requirements, functional requirements. It also is telling me to include that workflow diagram, which I'm going to do. And then would you like me to generate a version of text? Well, we know that Copilot's struggling with this, so I'm simply just going to do a straight up copy and paste. So I'm just going to grab all this. We're going to copy that. Now let's go over to the Plan Designer. All right, so now that we have created our prompt in the Microsoft 365 Copilot, we've created our program product requirements document, PRD, remember that? So now we're ready to jump in and create our application using Plan Designer. Are we going to be able to create Dynamics CRM in Plan Designer? Well, let's just see. Okay, very first thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to type in my prompt yet. A couple things we want to do before we dive into using Plan Designer. First off, let's go into the solutions. We're going to want to create a brand new solution to hold all of our assets. Now, in Plan Designer today, you can create a solution there. It will prompt you with a name for the solution, but you can't assign a publisher to that. So that's a little bit of a gap in my mind, but hopefully that will be resolved soon. But as of today, we'll still need to go in, build a solution with a publisher. That's not something I'm going to do. This is Dataverse 101. So if you've done this before, you can skip a little bit ahead as we set up the solution. I've given the solution name. I'm going to select a new publisher. And of course, give it a prefix so people know who was responsible for the creation of the assets. I was about to say, I'm the one who created the assets, but actually we're going to get Plan Designer to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So we actually are still going to use that prefix to identify who might be working on the solution. All right, we have our display name, CRM system, pretty simple. The publisher version, you can do what you want here. I'm just going to use my method, which is the year, month, day, time. And I'm also going to set this as my preferred solution. This means that any assets that get created within the Maker Studio, Maker Portal here will actually be automatically assigned to that solution. So this is pretty key. I like this because if you forget, you go to some of the other tools, this will all be consolidated into your solution, which is important. Hit create. All right, so now we have our blank solution. There's nothing here yet. So now, if we were talking a year ago, I would say, let's start building our CRM solution by looking at the requirements we created in our product requirements document. Hopefully someone would have put those as tasks in something like Azure DevOps or some other tools to, manage the project. And we would start going in and building our whole solution. Now this could take days, weeks, a lot longer as we build out all these things. But of course we want to use Plan Designer and we want to speed up that process. We want to vibe code it. Are we vibe coding this, or is this more AI assistant app development? I much prefer AI assisted app development over vibe coding these days. I know I've done stuff on vibe coding before, but really this is what it's all about. It's actually using AI as your Copilot, your partner in building these applications, not just vibe coding your way and creating a bunch of stuff and games and things within. We're doing business apps here, folks. Let's build some business apps. All right, so I'm going to go back now to the outside of the solution. We're going to go into home. Let's make a plan. So in a way, we already have our plan. We have our product requirement document, and I'm going to paste that into the text box here. And if you remember from the prompt that we created with M365, we have a lot of the details here, breaking it down. And this was the prompt we got M365 Copilot to create for us. I am going to include the preview features. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add, remember we did that diagram as well? Let's add that to feed it more information. Now, another gap here is the fact that we can only add image files, which is really bizarre because we want to have PDFs, maybe PowerPoints, meeting notes, a whole bunch of different things. But at this point, it's only image files. Again, hopefully Microsoft will resolve this. All right, so I've added the sales process image here as well, so that's there. I'm going to include the preview features, and let's kick this off and see what it comes up with. All right, so we've kicked off the process. It is defining our business problem. It is using the requirements agent. There are a series of agents that are going to kick in as part of Plan Designer. To me, this is sort of, I think, the future of how software interfaces are going to be. It's going to be a series of agents that you interact with, not so much a traditional user interface anymore. It's kind of exciting. It's a little bit scary at the same time, but anyways. So the first thing that's come up is the requirements agent generated user requirements section. How does it look? So this is where we're not just vibe coding and letting it go off and create our app for us. It is a process. And this is what I like about Plan Designer. It breaks it down into little processes. So if we scroll down, see the purpose of the plan. It talks about user requirements. It's breaking it into the roles. So as a solopreneur, it's breaking it down to user stories. As a user, I need to manage a catalog of services, remove services. So a bunch of different things here. And then basically it talks about the references that it used. Now, I also wanted the ability for prospects to be able to log leads and opportunities. And so instead of saying looks good, I'm going to go edit, and I'm going to add a user requirement here. I'm going to say, this is a solopreneur. I'm actually going to, let's actually scroll back up here, describe what I want to add a change. I said, I'm going to say add a role. So here I've added a new user requirement, add a role for prospects to be able to submit requests for discovery meetings. Let's just kick this off. And now, but it's basically it's going through that process again and hopefully creating some new roles here. So I'm going to scroll down. And yes, we do have that prospect role, so it did create this. But so far, let's just, we like this. And I'm going to keep the changes to this section. And it's generated the user requirements section. How does this look? Yes, looks good overall. All right, so the next thing that is created is processes. So this is something that's still in preview. We can take a look and we can actually view a process. So this provides a series of basically flows or workflows where you can go through and you can make sure that your particular app or solution is following a predefined set of steps. Good for documentation, good for training to understand how to go through this. Reviewing inquiry gets submitted, we review the information, we update contacts, we go through a bunch of things. And then we either qualify or disqualify the opportunity. And of course, if we qualify it, there goes through a whole series of other steps. And Take some time, review all this. Again, very much like before, we can go through and make some changes here, look at these different processes, and if everything looks good, we can continue on, or we can continue to edit this entire process and of course zoom in and kind of get the full picture. All right, so let's move on. Let's say the processes look good. I haven't looked at those closely. And then part of it we'll do next is the important part is data model. Now, this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. When we're creating new solutions, I'm always a big proponent of defining what your data model is first before you even start building lots of other things. Whether you do that in a Miro board, on a whiteboard, Visio, whatever tool, it's important to get that data model correct. When we did the vibe coding or the vibe coding exercise, or when we created the product requirement document, it did give us some instructions on the particular data model. This is where Plan Designer still has, I think, a little bit of weakness in terms of what it can and can't do. It creates for the data model a company table, contact, a service, an opportunity, pipeline stage, task. Created a bunch of things. Now, from the data model, we already have something called the common data model. The common data model has a series of tables already in Dataverse that we really should be reusing, and this is something the Plan Designer has absolutely no idea what the common data model is, but really should in order to be a very effective tool. So I'm going to go here, and yes, not that I don't disagree with the tables that it came up with, I just don't think a lot of those tables we need to create because they already exist in the common data model. So I'm now going to go into edit, and it's going to show the details here. And now we're into the details. This is the table designer, and we see a lot of things here: company, contact, opportunity, service, pipeline stage, task, activity, reminder. We don't need a lot of this. First off, company and contact. We already have tables of the common data model for this. First thing we do is we want to add plus the existing table. So we're going to add here, I'm going to add the account, and let's just do a search, contact. Awesome. We've added the account and contact table. Now, for those of you who worked with Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365 sales, you do know that there is an opportunity table. There's also a product table, but in our case, we want to be able to run this on a kind of vanilla Dataverse. It's a much more kind of boiled down. I'm not going to use the restricted entity, so I am going to leave the service and opportunity here. Pipeline stage is interesting. It's broken out those different pipeline stages as records. I think that's a little bit overkill for my needs. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to remove the table. Yep, and that is something that probably if you're using Plan Designer at this stage of the game, you're probably going to spend a good chunk of your time in here. And this is where your experience as a solution architect, a functional consultant, or developer is really going to shine, because this is where you're going to need to do a lot of that pruning. Now, that being said, as much as there's a lot of rumblings about the fact that it doesn't recognize tables from the common data service, this interface actually is pretty cool compared to what we had before within Dataverse. Dataverse, we had to actually define the tables and do the relationships, and there was some third-party tools or some XRM toolbox tools that could show us those diagrams, but nothing gave us that diagram. This was something that existed in Access 97, so I'm not sure why it never showed up in Dataverse up until now. That being said, account, contact, we're going to keep those tables in. Then the other thing I'm going to remove is the existing company. Yep, we're going to remove that. And we're going to remove this. And we're going to leave service activities, task, reminders. Again, those of you who've worked with Dataverse, with Dynamics 365, know that there's an activity table, an activity pointer that points to things like tasks, phone calls, emails. Yes, all of that stuff still exists in core Dataverse. Plan Designer doesn't seem to know about it, so we're going to actually not create those tables, but instead of adding those tables into this diagram, I'm going to show you later when we go into the table cleanup, we're going to activate the activities for those tables, and that will create them automatically with the proper relationships. So for now, we're just going to remove that. Yes. Yes. And the reminder as well. All right. We've removed all these. We now have a much smaller thing. Now what we want to do is actually link up the account to the opportunity. So what I'm going to do is going to create a relationship one-to-many from the account to the opportunity. I love the fact that it's filtered out just the tables that we're working with. Account, let's actually call this company for now. Do I make it required? Not yet. advanced options. So again, we can change some of the schema names here. Pretty straightforward, hit done. So now we have that relationship here. Of course, we already have that predefined relationship between account and contact, but I also in my opportunity want to have that relationship as well. So I'm going to say one contact could belong to many opportunities, and this is going to be the primary contact, the person that we're working with on this opportunity. Great, done. All right, so now that we've kind of created our data model, and you could tell we've cleaned this up a little bit, and I can move things around to make it look a little bit more decent, and I think we're okay there. Now, the other thing we want to do is we can take a look at some of the fields or the columns that got created. So let's look at the data itself. And now, what I like about Plan Designer as well, it will create sample data for us. Now, not the most ingenious sample data, but sample data nonetheless. So we have the opportunity, we have a lookup here to the service name, which again populates some sample data, the dates, pricing type, the price. That's maybe good rates. Now we have our lookups to our company and our primary contact. Now we could add new columns here. So for instance, let's say I wanted to add something like the sales stage, and I look at the data type and I pick choice and I say, yes, perfect, that's what I want. But then here we can only do local option sets, not global option sets. I think this is also a bit of a gap within the system that we can't do that. So because we can't do that, we can go back in later into our regular traditional tools to add those columns. Again, we could add other columns. Now, there are a couple different ways we could do that. We could go through and add this, or I could even say add a column, add a text column, and I'm just going to run through this. Now, where are we at with Plan Designer today? Let's find out. And yes, it created the opportunity source, so that's good. We're happy with this. Thumbs up. Again, I don't want to give you any information, so that's all good. So once we're good with all of this, now I'm going to actually now hit the save. We're going to move from the editing. Actually, we're still here. What I'll do is good. We're using that. I'm now going to, let's just actually hit save on this plan, just so we don't lose the work we're working on. Now, again, I'm just going a little bit of a segue here. Remember I told you earlier about creating your solution. It is going to want to create a new solution. However, what I want to do is I'm going to pick my existing solution, and that has my publisher here. So again, we could let Plan Designer do this, but we can't identify the publisher. So this is why it's important that we use our own solution. I'm going to hit save here. And we're in good shape so far. We have our data model, we have some of our processes, we have our user roles. Let's actually now go back into the overview. And data agent generated the data model. How does it look? Well, it looks good now that we fixed it. So I'm going to hit let's good. And now it's going to go through and begin to create some of the other technology, the apps, the flows, the other important things within our particular solution. All right, so part of the process here, it's created some suggestions for a model-driven app, a new website for the prospect inquiry portal, a Canvas app, that's interesting, and a report, and some more things, some other tables here, of course, to reflect and help out the user role. So this is beginning to build these assets. And of course, we always have the ability to go back and go in and edit and provide some more information here. So maybe I want to actually do something that's like, let's add an agent. So I'm going to say add an agent to manage and review prospects. I'm going to add that to the technology section. All right, so that's gone through again. It's created the, the model-driven app. The site hasn't created anything yet. It's just identified these objects, the report, and the agent. So that's pretty good. Do we like the changes? Again, we could review. Yep, sounds good. And now we've generated the technology section. How does it look? Again, we can say it looks good. And now it's time to start creating objects. But before you do, you need to save the tables first. So now we're at the point where we've kind of collected our requirements. We've kind of put our plan together. Now the agent itself, the Plan Designer agent, is going to want to go through and create those objects. So let's hit the save tables. And now it is creating those tables in Dataverse in our solution that we've specified. And again, this should be a developer environment or a sandbox environment. For the love of God, do not do this in prod, right? You're not. Okay, cool. All right, let's just this chug away for a minute. Okay, so it's gone through and it's created our tables in Dataverse. So they're saved. Now, the next thing we need to do is begin to create the rest of our objects. And it's going to go through this one by one. And again, because this is a Copilot, not a pilot, and it's not going to go off and do it for you, I could just, maybe I could say, I guess, go and do it. Nah, not really. So what we want to do here is, first off, let's create the model-driven app, the CRM Sales Pipeline Hub. I'm going to click this. And then what this is going to do, this is going to launch the model-driven app designer. All right, so it's generated a model-driven app for us. We have services, opportunities, accounts, contacts. It even created icons, which is very important, so we don't want those ugly puzzle pieces. If we wanted to, we could go in here and very much like we always could before, add a new page. I can do this. Of course, we have a new thing called generative pages. This is still in preview. We'll see. I like the idea. I like the concept here of generative pages. What we can't do, my little 2 cents on generative pages is we can't actually modify any of the code that gets generated. It's React code. It will generate for us. We can reprompt it, but we can't edit it. And it's still a little clunky. But anyways, try it out and preview. Again, don't do this in production. But for now, we're going to just go back. We're not talking about generative pages. I can edit my group here. I can add new groups, but these are not showing up in the new interface. Now, the other cool thing, or not less than cool thing that I'm not impressed with, is this using the new command bars within model-driven apps. I'm not sure if you've seen these yet. Let's just publish and take a quick look so I can go in a little bit of a mini rant. Hope Microsoft, you're listening to this if you're still watching this video by now. Here, if I go into a particular record, and let's just get this out of the way. Notice here the command bars have now moved over to the right. And I have to click again to find other things as opposed to it being over here. Why? Why did you do this? This makes no sense. This needs to be moved back over to the left. Okay? Like, seriously. Anyways, rant over. I'm not a fan of this new command bar, how they moved it over. Anyways, they'll fix it because they fix things like they fixed CRM 2013. Remember that, guys? Yeah, okay. All right. So again, long story short, created this model-driven app. We're all good here. Let's just publish this and we can move on to the next thing. All right. So I've ranted enough about the new model-driven app experience, which really has nothing to do with Plan Designer. It's more the model-driven app design, but that's a rant for another day. Well, more ranting for another day. Next thing on here, let's talk about the prospect inquiry portal. So what I can do is why can't I hit create on this? Why am I in read only? Here we go. Override session. All right. Here we go. We've created our model-driven app. Let's scroll back down here and let's go up here to the prospect inquiry. Let's hit create. Now what this will do, this will launch the Power Pages Copilot. Now I've done videos on the Power Pages Copilot before. We can call the site whatever, and it's now basically going to go through and give us a layout and that kind of thing. So at this point, Plan Designer, as opposed to creating a whole new interface, has basically just pointed us to the Power Pages Copilot to create the site. Not a big fan of this either, but again, so I can go through and edit the description and actually begin to refine and build my site. Or I could just go hit next and we can make these changes later. So I'm just going to say yes, a contact us is good. Let's choose an about us, not an FAQ, success stories, request a meeting, and resources. Let's take a look at this request meeting, something I want to point out to you folks. So we've created this, it's now creating that new site. Now the thing is, at this point, Plan Designer or the Power Pages Copilot are not, again, smart enough to realize that there's a whole Dataverse behind there with forms and views and that type of thing. So again, this is where if you're worried about AI taking your job, this particular AI is a little bit lazy. So I think your job's safe for at least a little while. All right, we're into the Power Pages Design Studio. I'm going to go into request a meeting, fully expecting to see a form here, and I don't. I just get this dead little button that's really not tied to anything, I don't think. So anyways, again, you're going to need to go in. You're going to be able to use your forms or build your own interfaces on this, or even if you want, build a single page application and upload that. That's going to be a video a little bit down the road. We're looking into that right now for building Power Pages. So, okay, we've now moved to the next stage in our Plan Designer. So this is all well and good. Let's go back here So we've created our portal. The next thing we want to do is we can create the Canvas app. So we just hit plus, and basically same thing. It's now going to go into the Canvas app designer. So we see here, very much like we've used Copilot before to build Canvas apps, it's added the opportunity. So this way it is a little bit smarter than the Power Pages Copilot or agent or whatever we're calling it this week. But we do see we've created this Canvas app. I think this is more for something for our salespeople to be able to manage their opportunities. Like, I mean, if you work with salespeople, you know what they're like. And if you're a salesperson, I apologize, but you know what you're like. So anyways, this is the Canvas app specifically for them to manage their opportunities. Looks pretty good. Again, I can save and publish this, and this is going to be part of my plan or my overall solution. All right, so we've created our model-driven app. We've created our Power Pages site. We've created our Canvas app. We now have our sales performance dashboard. And at this time, the Plan Designer does not have the ability to create reports and dashboards in Power BI. That's something you're going to have to go and do manually. So again, if that's your skill set, perfect. AI has not stolen your job today. Very good. Let's move on. Now, the last thing we have here is an agent. So very much like Power Pages and the model-driven apps and the Canvas app, we hit create. This will launch Copilot Studio. So we'll move from Plan Designer into Copilot Studio, where it's going to go through and take those requirements that were part of our overall plan and begin to build out our agent. All right, so we're in Copilot Studio. It's talking about the agent here. It's linked in Dataverse tables for the knowledge, the account, contact, and opportunity, which is pretty cool. I might want to also add the services table as well. So that might actually help in terms of requiring it. So I'm just going to add that table into my agent. And again, this is going into regular Copilot Studio stuff that you folks are probably very much experts in, really, for that matter. All right, now let's go back to the Plan Designer. So, all right, we've created our agent here. So these things have now lit up. Of course, our sales performance dashboard isn't there. We have the reference. So we've highlighted all of this in our processes. Let's just go here. It looks like we've created the tables. We've created everything. So basically, at the end of the day, I'm just going to save my solution again. We've now created, using Plan Designer, it has gone through based on our prompts and based on the work that we did in Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio to create our product requirements document. Then we put this in Plan, and it's created this. As you can see, there's still quite a bit of work to do to clean this up. So quickly, the last couple things we'd want to do is, yes, we do have the plan here, but I'll still probably go into my solutions and let's take a look at, doing some of the table cleanup that we talked about. If we go into the solution here, give this a second. So we see here the plan is part of the solution. So if I need to move this to another developer environment, it's going to be there. If I expand our tables here, let's take a look at the opportunity. Remember, we wanted to add sales stages as a global option set. So again, I could do this. I can go through and create a choice field. Here we go. And then again, we have the ability to create our global option set here. So that's something I'm going to go back in and do later. The other thing that we want to do here is on our tables themselves. Yes, let's close this panel. Let's look at the opportunity table. Let's look at the properties. And again, is under the advanced options. So doing things like enabling attachments if we want to do this, being able to, ability to create activities to link emails and that type of thing. So that's going to reference the activity table, turn on auditing. So there's still an awful lot of work to do outside of Plan Designer. All right, so one thing that once you're done with your plan, or your plan's probably never done, your solution's never done, but documentation, you're going to document your system, right? Right? Probably not. So one thing that does have is the ability to export this plan as a PDF. So this is pretty cool. It will actually take your plan and dump it out as a PDF format that you can give to your customers, or you put as part of your artifacts with your rest of your documentation. It does PDF. I would prefer Markdown, but it is what it is. So it's a step in the right direction. But if you actually look at overall, in terms of creating the tables, creating the apps, creating even the website to a certain extent, creating the agent, one thing I didn't touch on is creating Power Automate flows. The Plan Designer is beginning to bring all these things together in a little bit more logical fashion. So yes, there is still a lot of work, but a lot of that heavy lifting, that tedious work of creating columns, creating tables, creating forms, has been taken care of for you. Now, again, still a lot of work, but that is going to decrease the amount of time it takes to put these apps together, which of course is going to open up the time to put in those extra features that are going to delight your customers. So if you haven't tried Plan Designer lately, I kind of encourage you to go back in, give it another shot. Some of the roadblocks have been removed. Some of the roadblocks are still there, for instance, the table creation, for example, but there are now methods to get around that. Hope you like this video. Hope you like the new videos that are coming up. I have a lot of great ideas around Power Platform and other things, especially around AI and AI assistant app creation. That's kind of a very exciting field, I think, and opens up a lot of opportunities. And as you can see, if you're already an experienced Power Platform or Dynamics 365 solution architect, developer, functional consultant, plenty of work for you to do. Thanks.